Welcome to the Inside Carolina podcast. This is post-game Georgia Tech. It's also coast to coast, rolled into one big show, sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. And with the post-game comes Sherrell, McMillan, and Sean Moran, and they're with me because they're also the coast to coast crew. Joey Powell, the normal host, is sunning and funning on vacation, much needed vacation here. Got out of town. Got out of North Carolina just in time to avoid what's coming this way on Sunday. If you're listening to this, it's probably Sunday morning. But we're going to talk about this Georgia Tech win. Carolina wins 88-65. We were talking just briefly off air, Sherrell. Those first 30 minutes of Carolina basketball tonight against Georgia Tech were some of the best I've seen in a couple of years. Well, maybe 3 years for this North Carolina team. And I wanted to see them come out and be able to do that after a week break. Your overall take on what you saw?
Yeah, I think it was a dominant performance from UNC. It was a performance that was needed, and it was a performance that I think was a little bit overdue. Everyone has talked about with this team, the only thing you can be sure of is their inconsistency. And I think now they're starting to put a few games together. That's 3 of their last 4 games that have completely just overmatched their opponent. It started with Boston College a couple of weeks ago, and then they lost up at Notre Dame. Then they destroyed Virginia. Had a week off, came back and kind of beat down Georgia Tech tonight. So it is starting them down the right path for people maybe to start believing that they can do this every night. I think you guys on Inside Carolina Live this morning made great points about motivation. Because, it's easy to get up when you're playing another top NBA prospect. It's easy to get up when you just lost by 30. You want to go and show that that was a fluke. It's easy to get up, when it's a primetime game and everyone's watching. But when it's a game that really no one nationally cares about, that the only people who care about it is your fan base and the people on the court. So, the fact that they came out with their hair on fire, played hard, made shots, I think that goes a long way into possibly those issues, the sleepwalking maybe being rectified. I'm not ready to go there yet, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
I agree there. This did a lot to sort of ease my wonder about the sleepwalking issue. Like I said earlier, I agree with everything you said. Sean, your overall take? I mean, Carolina dominant against a Georgia Tech team that has some players. I mean, DeVoe and Usher can play, and DeVoe, I would wager it's not too often that a team's star player has more turnovers than made baskets and points in a game. DeVoe did just that tonight. Your take?
Yeah, you said the word dominant, and I think that's a word Carolina fans haven't mentioned it in quite some time. And with UNC coming in, I think they're around 12-point favorites. You expected kind of a comfortable win, but you never really know what you're going to get. But as Sherrell said, I mean, now the consistency, they were up, for the most part, 20 plus, very fun to watch offensively. I think it helped Georgia Tech not scoring the last 5 minutes of the first half. But once again, the starters are clicking. The starters have found their roles. And I think most importantly, we've seen over the last 2 games when maybe Love or Davis is not at their best, they've still improved enough where they're not they're not killing the team like, say, Kentucky. Love didn't have his greatest game, five turnovers, but he played well enough and he hustled, and some of those turnovers were excusable. So I think if we can see that going forward, that can also increase the potential for this team.
Sherrell, your thoughts on the rotation tonight? With Walton and Garcia back, a lot of people on the message boards, a lot of people thought, hey, Carolina's got to have these guys tonight. They didn't. They didn't really need them. With Bacot doing what he does and RJ Davis, I tweeted it. RJ Davis has got some aversion to Yellow Jackets because he has torched them twice this year. And, he came out hot. And then Bacot, I mean, the national guys are starting to notice, I guess, at least the ACC ESPN guys. This guy is playing ridiculously good in this stretch. So they did not need Walton and Garcia. But what did you think about the rotation tonight? I thought it was a little tighter than I expected it to be, but I think we're figuring out that's Hubert Davis's way.
Yeah, it was tight, but that's, when you can get those 30-point wins, it's what the football team dealt with, right? They always said if we can get those 30-point wins, then we can, get the backup quarterback some snaps and get these young guys some snaps. But they never got the 30-point wins, so those guys didn't get as many snaps. In this case, you have from missed 2 games, so they've been out almost 2 weeks. And the fact that they were able to get that lead, they got a few minutes in the first half, and then play the majority of the last 10 minutes in the second half. I think that helps a lot. Just getting their, just honestly fitness, just getting the feel back into the game after being gone for so long in the middle of the season. So I think that was a positive. And then, Hubert Davis has kind of shown what he's going to do with the rotation. We have, more than half of a season. We have 16 games as a sample now that he's going to play his starters every minute, and he's going to substitute as needed, maybe situationally, and then go from there. The good thing, again, about a huge win is that you see Bacot 29 minutes, you see Love 29 minutes, you see Davis 29 minutes. I think that's the first time that none of them have had 30 or more minutes in some time. So that's positive, especially when you're going into this huge stretch that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, Sean, let's talk about Bacot, Armando Bacot for a minute. And I saw the tweet. He's in his last 3 games, he's just been ridiculous for North Carolina. He said when he came back, whenever he announced he came back, he wanted to make a legacy or to put his playing time in perspective high up the list for bigs in North Carolina. He's doing just that. I don't know if he's all ACC or, ACC Player of the Year at this point. We got a long ways to go, and we'll talk about that briefly. But he's putting together a stretch that Carolina big men just haven't done in a while.
Definitely agree with that, and it is nice to see. Once again, it's kind of going back to Sean May numbers his junior year in 2004-05, Bryce Johnson numbers as well. And I think, when you looked at Armando Bacot as a freshman, you saw the potential from kind of an efficiency standpoint. His numbers matched up with some of those, UNC bigs that had really strong junior and senior seasons. And he's kind of the perfect example of somebody that has just continued to get better. And right now he's putting it, really doing everything offensively. Defensively, he's been playing better. But yeah, right now, I mean, he's right at this point in time, ACC Player of the Year, obviously a long way to go, but he's having a tremendous season. And I think, once again, outside of Duke, there's not a lot of big wins to get, but if they can string together, a lot of wins in a row, a handful of wins, they can, put themselves in contention for a much better playoffs, NCAA tournament seed at the end of March.
And Sherrell, if folks are watching on YouTube, Sherrell dropped out, had a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. He'll be right back. But Sean, what's the difference? Obviously Hubert Davis's style is conducive for a big man to have some open looks and to get. But early in the season, it felt like they still didn't fully understand how to get him the ball. Brady Manick's great at it. He's clearly got the best basketball IQ on the team, at least from my standpoint. But what's the difference for the rest of these guys? Is it just getting comfortable with the style of play and the need and the necessity of getting Bacot the ball where he can score?
Yeah, I mean, I think the guards are also realizing that, hey, we can just throw it into him, and that's going to help us look good. You mentioned Brady Manick. I mean, once again, when he catches the ball either on the top of the key or on the wing, he's delivering it quickly, and he's delivering it in a perfect position. So I think, everybody's starting to realize what they have around him. I think Armando himself is getting more confident. And I think it also helps the starters kind of finding their roles and their footing, as well, because now, I think for the most part, they understand that it goes through Armando, and here's a guy that can get you 25 on a given night very efficiently. Somebody that's not going to need to go, 25 shots to get those 25 points.
Sherrell, my question to Sean there was, what has changed for Bacot over the last couple weeks? He's getting the ball better. He's very active, but it seems to me that finally the guards and everybody is they're understanding the system and understanding that the ball has to go through Bacot, and they're getting better at getting him the ball where he needs it. It's been a struggle for 2 years at Carolina. The last 2 seasons was post-entry. Now, at least in the last 2 weeks, it hasn't really been an issue. Your thoughts on why that is so?
Like Sean said, you kind of see the results, and the results yield, what you do. And if you know that good things are going to happen when Armando gets the ball, then you're going to be more diligent about making that happen. I also think Brady Manick, he's, we talk about him every podcast about how good he is as a passer in the half court. That helps tremendously too, because, he had 4 assists. RJ Davis had 4 assists. I think Caleb Love had 2. Leaky had 4. When you see someone like Manick, give up a good shot for a great shot for Bacot, that kind of stuff, it's cliche to say, but it is infectious, because, you get an advantage and you start seeing the ball swing around and everybody starts to get there as once Bacot gets his. So I think that's part of it too. It is unselfish, but there is a selfishness in it. Not a negative selfishness, but that if I feed this guy, then I'm going to eat too. So I think there's a lot of that kind of permeating throughout the team. And you have to give props to Hubert Davis as well. He's made sure that his team knows that that's how they need to play and how they have to play, because Armando Bacot, there's not many teams who have anyone who can match up with them. So again, if you get him the ball, good things will happen. I think it's all that, wrapped into one. Plus the way the game ended against Notre Dame, when he was, playing really well and they failed to get him the ball down the stretch. I think you combine all that, and that's why you're seeing what you've seen in the last 3 games.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, what did he get? 4 shots, or a couple, 4 shots in the second half against Notre Dame when he was absolutely dominating the Irish. Somebody got the message, and it sounds like everybody on the team got the message. So props to Hubert Davis on getting that accomplished, and Armando as well. I mean, there's no doubt that he's been vocal about the need to get the ball, and he's living up to it. I think one of the biggest stats of the night, and we can talk about 29 and 12, but for me, it's 9 for 9 from the foul line. I don't recall him doing that a lot over the course of his career. Maybe he has. I'm sure the stats will show that he has, but as we saw with a guy like Tyler Hansbrough, if you make your foul shots, you can stack points in a hurry as a big, and he goes 9 for 9 tonight. And Carolina shoots 91% from the free throw line against Georgia Tech and winning by 23. Guys, let's sort of twist, and there's a lot of more positives in the game, but let's twist it to moving forward, because the season has felt disjointed to me for the last month, maybe, with Virginia Tech game getting postponed, the Boston College game got moved back a day, weeks off between games. But Sean, here we come. They got Miami this week, and then Wake Forest kicks off a stretch where they seem to play every day or every other day. We've talked about the rotation. We've talked about the depth. Is Carolina, in your opinion, is this team prepared as well as they can be going into this stretch of ACC games? There's no, I said it on the Inside Carolina Live show today, there's no great teams in the conference. Duke, maybe. But there's certainly some ones that can cost you NCAA tournament hopes if you don't play well against. What's Carolina's status for you going into this run?
Yeah, I mean, this next week is crucial, and then obviously you have Virginia Tech right afterwards. But two road games, two teams obviously not ranked, but at the same time 2 teams that have talent and are well coached. I think you would love to have the bench maybe playing a little bit better, but at the same time, Miami's not a deep team. For the most part, they rely on their 5 starters. So I really think, once again, can they focus and come out and get road wins? Obviously, they did against BC, but that was BC. Notre Dame, they got down early and really spent the game, trying to come back from the deficit, and they ended up losing. So, if this team, we always talk about the potential of this team, and if they play up to it, I would expect them to go 2-0. But at the same time, Miami won at Duke. Charlie Moore and Isaiah Wong. I mean, they've got some players and athletes. So, it's going to be tough, and I think it'll show a lot, because once again, every week, you kind of don't really know what you're going to get. And today we got what a lot of us were hoping for. Once again, that can change very quickly against Miami. So it'll be, this will be a telling week, but there's a lot of basketball, which will be fun for everybody.
Sherrell, is it sustainable that Carolina's, and this is something we've never seen with Carolina basketball. I mean, I think, Sean, you pointed out on our Slack, is that Justin McCoy's basket midway second half, I don't remember exact time, was the first points for the bench. I can't remember that being the case for a North Carolina team. Is this sustainable, or does somebody that is a non-starter, whoever it may be, do they need to step up and provide or else for this Carolina team?
Yeah, offensively, I don't really think so. There've been Carolina teams where the majority of the points were scored by, a couple few, to use a Southern term. I mean, think back to, back in your day, the 97-98 teams, they had some help, but most of it was Vince Antoine and Shaman, those couple of years. There was an occasional Serge Zwicker 25-point game or an Okalaja 15-point game, but for the majority of it, it was those three. So, I mean, I think you can win that way. It's very different from what North Carolina has had over the last 16, 17 years. But I don't think it's going to be an issue as far as scoring is concerned. I think defensively is where those guys can really come in and help, because there is such an offensive burden on the starting five. Or I guess I should say the starting six, if you include Garcia and Manek, count them as one person. There's such a burden on them to score that, there might be some energy issues on the defensive end. And we've seen that throughout the season. So if Ant Harris, when he's healthy, and Kerwin Walton, or, whomever can come in and just give them, 10 minutes of solid defense, of running through screens and just making the guys on the other end try a little bit harder, I think that's invaluable for them moving forward. But offensively, no, I don't think they necessarily have to have someone come off the bench and score 10 points. It'd be nice, but I don't think it's a necessity for them to win games.
It always seems that somebody on the bench ends up needing to make a play when it gets tough sledding in the ACC. But I agree. I mean, with the firepower they have in the starting lineup, you mentioned Jameson and Vince and Shaman. So, Sean, who is the third guy for this Carolina team behind Bacot and Caleb Love? Is it RJ Davis consistently, or is it going to be a collection of guys, Manek, Garcia, RJ, somebody else we haven't talked about? Because I think to win in the ACC consistently, especially when the games are back to back, you got to have three. Do you see one guy stepping up amongst that group, or is it going to be just a collection of them, whichever night somebody's hot?
I mean, I think it's really going to be, the top four. I'm putting Manek in there. Hopefully he stays in the starting rotation. But I think, with that four, you're playing Leaky as a starter. He's going to take anywhere from 0 to 2 to 3 shots. So there are a lot of shot attempts to go around. And I think, those guys can consistently get in double figures. I think RJ and Caleb have, outside of games here or there, have proven that they can do that consistently. Manek has done it as of late, but, one thing we've talked about here the last few podcasts is if he can string together, a couple threes in a row, that just helps the team so much. And if he's getting 12 to 15 points and several assists, I think that's going to go a long way, just given the consistent effort that we know we'll get out of Armando for the majority of games.
Sherrell, one of our topics earlier, I want your take on that third guy. I agree that it can be any one of them. But one of our topics earlier on Inside Carolina Live was the pressure of playing point guard at North Carolina and how tough it was. Do you think that the way Hubert Davis has sort of split the duties between Caleb Love and RJ Davis, do you think that's really helped them this year as part of the growth? They struggled heavily last year. How has Hubert's approach helped those two guys?
It's a difficult question to answer, only because we haven't seen a freshman point guard play under head coach Hubert Davis. So, the way he handles them could be completely different. But if you're comparing freshman point guard under Roe Williams to, sophomore point guards under Hubert Davis, everybody forgets they both started the first game last year, Collins and Charleston, as freshmen. They were the first freshman backcourt to start in like 12 years or something. I just think it is growth. It's just a few factors. It's growth. It's, having seen everything they went through last year, it's a not completely different, but a revamped or remodeled offensive system. And then I think they're just hitting some of the shots that they didn't hit last year. I think when you add all that in, it's making it easier for them. But yes, having the other on the court does lessen the burden. Think about if Cole Anthony had someone like RJ Davis, or Cole Anthony had someone like Caleb Love to play beside, how much more effective he would have been in his only year at Carolina. And he was pretty as effective as it was when he played. But yeah, having another guy beside you who can handle and pass and say, okay, I got this possession, or you go over here and you can be the two of this possession. We can mix and match. That definitely helps a ton. And I think Hubert Davis, to his credit, from his first interview, he said he likes playing 2-point guards, and that's what it's been, since practice started. And I think that's what it's going to be throughout his tenure, honestly.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. Are we concerned, Sean? And I know it's just one game. Are we concerned how the bench played the last 10 minutes of the game against Georgia Tech going forward in the event that somebody goes down or somebody picks up COVID protocols or all? Is that a concern, or is that just one of those things where that stretch is what it is? I think Sherrell tweeted, Roy Williams would say it's definitely, it all looks better when it goes in the basket. But I can imagine he would not have been pleased, as I can imagine Hubert is not pleased with how that last 10 minutes shook out against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the names on the court and you say, wow, there's definitely some talent that's out there. Once again, it's younger talent. I think, in this game, once again, you had Garcia and Walton both coming back from some absences, so you expected some rust. I guess for this game it was good just for them to get out on the floor, but and Garcia's proved he can have big games. But I think if he could come in as really, now if he's a six man and he can get you kind of an efficient 8 to 10 points, 6 to 10 points, I think that will help. And Walton, would love to see him, just kind of get a few more shot attempts when he does get in, because I think having a guy that can come in, add some points quickly will definitely help. And once again, we've seen UNC go through some scoring troubles at times, and we've seen it with Kentucky and Tennessee and some of the better teams where both Caleb and RJ have been off at the same time, and that's where then there's a lot of pressure on Armando. So it wasn't over huge concern, but it is definitely something to monitor, because I think we are gonna need something from them going forward.
What do you think, Sherrell? One thing that in this game, when Bacot picked up that early foul, it was a uh-oh moment, because if he picks up a second when he's sitting, and we've seen what Carolina looks like at times without him, but is there any concern, and I know we've talked about scoring from the starters and all, but is there any concern about the play that we saw in that second half?
Well, let me there's a game coming up where Armando already has a foul, so just factor that
at
in
least one.
Well, yeah, it was interesting because I that was something I was kind of watching too. He gets a foul within the first 50 seconds, and then I was like, okay, how is he going to handle this? And he didn't pick up his second until into the second half. So that was big by him, just playing good defense and making sure he wasn't getting himself in harm's way. But I'm a little less concerned about how the bench played, because honestly, if Caleb Love or Armando Bacot get hurt or have COVID or anything, the chances of Carolina, doing anything remotely positive, as far as winning games, just goes down, tremendously. So it's not much of a concern, because if you lose one of those guys, what are you going to do? I mean, there's a reason they're the starters. There's a reason that they're playing so well. There's a reason that they're getting 32, 33, 34 minutes per game. Again, with the bench, I just I look for them to come in and just be steady and be solid and don't hurt the team. It's what we always talked about, Tommy. Don't be a negative on the team. and they were tonight. But if you assume that Bacot and Love don't get injured or COVID or anything, then these guys are playing, 9-10 minutes a game versus the 17, 18, 19, 20 they got tonight. So you're just asking for good defense. You're asking for no turnovers. If you have an open shot, try your best to hit it. If you don't, that's okay. Just don't turn the ball over, play good defense. So I wasn't looking for them to like take the lead from 30 to 40 or anything. It was more so, keep it around 25, -5 with that group wouldn't have been terrible or anything like that. So again, to me, it's not a huge concern, because if they're playing together, then there's a lot bigger issues for UNC anyway.
Absolutely. That's a great point there. Your Wi-Fi is making me think I'm watching an old Godzilla movie, on Japanese Godzilla movie at times. It's funny, but you sound great. It's just, it's not matching up with the voice. So our YouTube listeners can have some fun with that. I'm going to take a short break, talk about Johnny T-shirt, johnnytshirt.com. I don't know how I can express more gratitude for Johnny T-shirt and the folks over there and how they treat our Inside Carolina premium subscribers. We need to look after them. You need to go over there. You need to shop there or shop online, get everything you need for Carolina, and you get the 10% off. They'll deliver it to your door, or they'll provide you great in-person customer service. So check them out when you have an opportunity, if you're in Chapel Hill, or just go see them online and take care of your needs for Carolina sports and Carolina gear. National guys are going to pay the bills. We'll be right back. Coast to Coast podcast. At this point, we'll talk some basketball recruiting with Sherrell McMillan and Sean Moran. Okay, we're back. Sean, I want to talk about a visitor that was in the Smith Center on Saturday night, but I want to turn to you first to talk about the play of Carolina's current commits. I've seen a lot of highlights from Tyler Nickel where he's played really well. Give us a status update and how those guys are progressing as Carolina commits. Anything surprise you? Anything or anything surprise you positively or negatively about what you've seen so far?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start with Seth Trimble first. And since January, and really over his last 3 games, he's had 41 points, 34 points, and 34 points. Shooting over 50% in every game, and through those 3 games he hit 6 threes. So no matter what the level of competition is, that is always pretty incredible to see. So I think he's really been playing at a high level up in Wisconsin against some of the public schools up there. Tyler Nickel. We've talked about the level of competition and kind of small school Virginia basketball. So it's not, even at the level that Trimble's at right now, but at the same time, he's been dominant with, 28, 37, 43, 48. I mean, 48 points, 18 to 26. That once again, no matter who you're playing, that's pretty impressive. And then, probably a guy I've gotten to watch more than the others as of late is Simeon Wilcher. I know we've talked about him the last pod. We had a recent video breakdown, but even this week, scored 20 points and was hitting some deep threes off the catch. So, right now the guys are playing well. It'd be great if Washington was healthy and we were seeing what he was made of. But I think everybody's playing kind of at the top of their game going into really the last 2 months of their senior years for Nickel and Trimble.
Sherrell, when you look at those guys, this is a question I've asked you before, I think, but it's been a while since we talked. When you look at guys dominating or playing well in high school and you look at level of competition, how does one look at a guy like Nickel or a guy like Trimble and say, how is that going to translate to the level, to ACC level basketball, to North Carolina level basketball? Because a lot of people see people putting up 30, 40 points a game in high school and think they're going to come into Carolina and do that. So how do these guys, what they're doing now, how will that translate? What positive do you see from these performances that will translate to North Carolina?
I think mindset is probably the most important thing, along with confidence. And both of these guys are players who are ultra aggressive in unique ways. Trimble is ultra aggressive in that he's always putting pressure on the defense by driving, trying to dunk on people, trying to get into the lane, draw fouls. He's always on the floor, taking punishment. That's kind of what he does. And then Nickel is aggressive in a different way and confident in a different way. And then there's not a shot that he doesn't like or a shot that he thinks he won't make. So I think those things carry over. You can start to look at, despite level of competition, you can look at form, you can look at release, you can look at footwork, you can look at space creation. All those things kind of give you a glimpse into what a player might struggle with, or what might be an area of early success for them. So I think for Trimble, if you're talking about an area of early success, definitely defense is something we talked about before because of his size and his athletic ability. He's going to be a tough person to get by defensively, and he's going to be a tough cover for a lot of people, just because he's big and strong. It looks like he played wide receiver right now in college football, so he's got that going for him. For Nickel, I think defensively might be the place where it might be a little bit of an adjustment for him because he's going to be playing on the wing, probably some 3-3-4, and the guys there are going to be really, really athletic. So he's going to have to get better at moving his feet, get a little stronger. But then offensively, he's already, how should I say, he's already at the point where he's learning how to create space for himself. And, some people might say, oh, he's having to do that against, small league, Virginia schools. What's going to happen in the ACC? But I think part of the work that he's doing to learn how to create space is in preparation for UNC and not necessarily for his high school team. So I think those are two ways that both of those guys, you can kind of see the skills and how they translate. And you can also see a couple of areas where they're going to need to improve and continue to work.
What about Wiltshire there? He's a guy that looks like he can come in and play now.
Yeah, his body transformation since July has been pretty incredible. I mean, he looks like a big kid, for lack of a better. I don't know how else to say it. Like he's kind of built tough. But I think for him it's a little bit tougher because he's still 2 years away from entering. But I think again he prides himself on his defense. That was one of the first things he talked about, and he's 6'5" now. Self-reported. So that's someone, with his length and, with his size that can cover both guard spots and even if need be, probably cover a lot of threes as well. So he'll provide, and Sean's talked about this, several times, he'll provide a lot of defensive versatility, I think, immediately when he gets to Chapel Hill.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see these guys. I mean, we've seen the ones that are like great in 8th and 9th grade and get no better. And they're the same guy in college. So it's fascinating to watch them develop in high school. Sean, if you're a coach, if you're Hubert Davis, what do you tell each of them to work on to improve the most? Sherrell talked about what translates, but what do these guys need to work on the most? Washington needs to get healthy, period. Mm-hmm. But everybody else, give me one or two nuggets for each player.
Sure. I mean, Trimble, it's gonna, we'll be saying it all summer. It's the 3-point shooting, because that's gonna just open up his game so much more. He's got an extremely explosive first step, and he's really comfortable in that mid range. But if he can continue to work on that 3, and he doesn't have to be hitting them like Caleb Love or RJ Davis are right now when he comes in, but he needs to be better than what they were as freshmen. Because I think that'll alleviate a lot of pressure on him. So 3-point shooting for Trimble. And, in terms of Nickel, Sherrell just talked about creating space. It's really just continuing to, after the season, get in the weight room, get on the track. And, he can probably, I'd say maybe even, lose a little bit just in terms of, being out there and getting up and down the court. So for him, it's more just kind of training and working on that athleticism, because he can shoot it. He's tough, but I think the foot speed's the big question mark on how will that translate to the ACC.
Sherrell, tell us about the visitor in the Smith Center on Saturday night. Hubert Davis doing work. It is crazy to me that we're talking about 2024 kids, especially since I've got a 2023 child in my house. So I'm thinking, God, this guy's younger than my youngest. Tell us about what you know.
There was a kid, as an aside, there was a kid in the tournament we were at Chick-fil-A. He is a freshman. This is down in South Carolina over Christmas. He's a freshman at Archbishop Stepinac, where R.J. Davis went to school. They were playing down there. And someone asked him, they're like, so, tell me about yourself. He's like, oh, I love basketball, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, so when, what's your birth date? And he was like, August something, 2006. And I was just like, man, I remember covering the class of 2006. And there was someone born in 2006. So to your point, yeah, the fact that we're talking about 24s is pretty interesting. But for North Carolina, that's where a lot of the attention is right now. Cam Scott, who is a 6'6", guard / wing from Lexington, South Carolina, was in the Smith Center tonight. It was his first unofficial visit to Carolina. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time this is published, if he has an offer or not. We'll see. I'll be surprised if he did. Not saying he will, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, just because he is someone who will definitely be, I think, top 20 nationally. He's already kind of got those kind of accolades. He's got offers from a lot of schools in the SEC, a lot of schools in the ACC, and just a smooth player who I think there are some positives in favor of UNC in his recruitment. Let's put it that way, if they decide to, go down that route. So a pretty good first impression, I think, for UNC for him, considering they had a blowout win and everybody played well and they were hitting shots, and it was a pretty good atmosphere. One of the better ones in the Smith Center this year.
Yeah, I'm interested to know, and both of you, and Sean, I ask you first, and then Sherrell, you especially, is how much do those visits, those unofficial visits, make a difference? Say you come in and you see a dud of a game, the team gets beat. Is that a big deal? Do you come in and you see a game like this where a guy playing the position you might play just has a dominant performance? Sean, does that make as big a difference as we think of as guys that watch recruiting from afar?
It's a great question. I'll probably defer a little bit to Sherrell on this. I mean, I think when you're looking at both the short term and the long term, obviously it's always better just to kind of have a fun experience and the positive vibe and the locker room afterwards versus a loss or playing poorly. But especially for somebody that's even 23 or 24, their decision is a long way, for the most part, a long ways off, and there's a lot that's going to go into that decisions. And by the time that decision is made, does a game a year or 2 years ago register? So, I think once again, in the long term, probably not, but there have been a handful of, whether it's Duke games or other big games, and UNC's had 5-star guys in there, and maybe they haven't performed up to expectations, and you think, man, they blew it with how they played, and it probably wasn't that one game. So I think it's always, as fans, you always want a good performance and to leave on a positive note, but there's so much more that goes into the whole process in my mind.
Sherrell, how much do guys look and say, hey, this is Caleb Love plays position I'm going to play, and they use him so well, and he had a dominant performance, and the inverse of that, when they see a guy in their position? I mean, does it what ultimately matters the most?
I think that's a good one. We need more time for that, Tommy.
Hey.
I'm getting comfortable because we're gonna need more time for that. I think what's ultimately the biggest thing for most guys is, when am I going to play and how much am I going to, what position am I going to play and how much am I going to play immediately? I think that's the first question. It's like, if no matter how talented you are, you want to be on the court. And if you go somewhere where you're not going to be on the court, or if you're being offered a scholarship at a place where you might not be on the court that much, that might put them at a disadvantage. I think as far as the atmosphere stuff, I think it varies from person to person. There have been recruits who I know, been to a game at the Smith Center where it was loud in there, and the guy at their position played well, and they're like, you know what, this is good. And it can ultimately be a tiebreaker. I think, if you have a spreadsheet of all this stuff and it's coming out pretty even, you're like, well, the environment was better there, and the last guy in my position there is off to the NBA. That might push them over the top. I think for other people, it doesn't matter. It's much more clinical, and much more of a, to use the phrase everybody hates, a business decision. Look at Zion Williamson, for example. he was at one of the best games I think maybe ever in the Smith Center. They hosted Duke, the school he ended up going to. Joel Berry, was going crazy. Kenny Williams hitting threes. Phil Ford, was there sitting beside him, chatting him up. Michael Jordan gives the ceiling is the roof, comment. All that happened in that game. I think there's something else that happened in that game, but it didn't sway him, and it's like, well, if you're not going to be swayed by that, then you're definitely, making the decision based on things other than emotion. So I would say it varies, depending upon the recruit.
Let me ask the other question, and this is something that a lot of people on the message boards have said. You got freshmen, however ranked they are, whatever level ranked they are, that aren't getting much playing time. Sherrell?
No, I mean,
clear it up for folks.
With this particular team, and Dontrez and DeMarco, I think a lot of people believe they're going to be good players, and they have a pedigree. They had good offers. They're good players. But Gigi Jackson, for example, Carolina's top player or top recruit in 2023 isn't going to not come to Carolina because Dontrez Styles and DeMarco Dunn aren't playing that much. That's just not the way that works. One, talent wise and ranking wise and prestige wise, they're on different levels, and that's no disrespect to Dontrez or DeMarco. The other thing is that every player thinks they're the best player on the planet. So what the reason, if I'm high major player X, the reason high major player Y from the class behind me isn't playing is because he's not as good as me, not because the coach is holding him back or anything else. That line of thought, especially with guys who aren't, the top 10, top 15 types, I don't understand that line of thought.
That's an interesting take. We're going to wrap this one up. Coast to Coast podcast, post-game Georgia Tech podcast earlier, rolled into one big ball of wax. Sean, I'm going to let you give me things we need to look for in the next few weeks for North Carolina basketball. And I'm going to leave it as open as that. And Sherrell, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Just what, as a North Carolina basketball fan, do I need to be paying attention to, whether it's recruiting, whether it's ACC play, whether it's specific player play? What am I looking for that will make me happy if I'm that Carolina basketball fan that seeks happiness?
Seeks happiness. Well, I mean, I think, offense, Carolina is a strong offensive team. So what does somebody want to look for over this next week and a half stretch? It's really going to come from the defensive end. Notre Dame, made UNC, they embarrassed them, in South Bend, and you're playing a Jim Larrañaga team. He was one of the coaches that I felt always knew how to plan very well against Roy Carolina teams. Especially how to make them uncomfortable on the defensive end. Against Duke, they spread the floor and attacked off back doors. So I think that's going to be one thing. Wake Forest is extremely well coached. I love, who they brought in from a coaching perspective. So once again, they're going to try to take advantage of mismatches, try to get Bacot out on the perimeter. And then, same with Virginia Tech. So you're getting three well-coached teams, and it's going to come down to defensive mentality in terms of how they do.
Sherrell, I just asked these open-ended world questions. You said you're getting comfortable, so give me the Sherrell McMillanisms for the next couple of weeks. I mean, look, let's be honest. You're like the most positive, soothing guy on Inside Carolina. I'm just the old crotchety guy. Give us something. I think Carolina's playing well. I think this game showed me a lot. I think however many games it is, 5, 6, 7 games in a week and a half, 2 weeks is going to be taxing. And I agree with Sean that it's got to get done on the defensive end. They'll hit enough shots to win. But from Sherrell McMillan's standpoint, what has to happen for Carolina to keep progressing?
Well, I think a couple of things. First off, the footage from Kentucky and Tennessee and Purdue is just going to be on a loop for every opponent moving forward, and Notre Dame too. I think Moore from Miami is in a similar. He's shorter, but in a similar vein to Kennedy Chandler, who gave UNC trouble. and to Savon Wheeler, who also gave UNC trouble. So that is someone to watch. We know that Miami and Larinaga are going to pick and roll you to death, and they're going to pick and roll, and then they're going to pick and roll again, and then they're going to pick and roll again after they pick and roll. So you have to watch out for that, specifically against Miami. Bigger view, I would say protect your home court is huge. They're now 19-1. These sophomores are, so Walton and Love and Davis, 19-1 at home. And they play really well, and they have a big margin of victory here lately at home. So protect your home court. And then I would say, I'm a firm believer, 10 ACC road games, if you split them, you're doing well. And so they've already won 2. So they've got 8 left. So they need to go at least 3 and 5 down the stretch on the road in the ACC, I think, to feel good. And then you expect maybe, one slip up here or there at home. I think that puts them in good position. So find a way the rest of the season to get 3 more ACC road wins. Doesn't matter who it's against, when it's against, or who it's against, when it is, or how they win. Just get 3 more. Protect your home court, with maybe a loss or 2 here or there, no more than 2. And then, like y'all said, defensively, I think if they can handle that, there's a chance for this team. I'm going to say it again for the 97th time. This is as talented a roster as there is in the country outside of 6 or 7 teams, maybe 5 or 6 teams. So they have the ability. They just have to continue to do it. And then the last stat I would look for is assists to field goals made, because when they're sharing the ball, I think tonight it was 20 assists to 30 field goals. When they're sharing the ball, that means Armando Bacot is getting the ball and things are swinging, and that helps their defense too.
Yep, 20 assists on 30 makes. Sean?
Yeah, definitely agree with Sherrell. Was nodding heavily as he talked about the ball movement there, since that's been a hot topic. But while we've been recording, Ken Pom was able to process the game, and it moves UNC into the top 25, which I think they've been. It's been kind of a slow, steady climb to get there. But one other stat right now from the 3-point line, they're 39.8%, number 6 in the country. And, just going back to last year, how, if what a struggle it was to get them to make, 5 to 6 threes a game. And now they're one of the top shooting teams in the country. So it's nice to see that improvement, and obviously opens up the game for Armando down low, that 3-point shooting ability.
Hey, Sean, since you're there, can you look up one other thing?
Mm-hmm.
Since we're a fourth of the way through the ACC season, 5 games, look at conference only stats and see who is number 1 in defensive efficiency in the conference only games. I'm curious.
Well, I think you know the answer, but it is UNC, and they are at a 94.9 defensive efficiency rating, which is almost 4 points, about 3.5 points higher than or lower than Duke right now. So they're number 2 offensively. Miami is number 1, and they're number 1 defensively. But once again.
But the fact is, facts only, through a fourth of the way through ACC play, UNC is number 1 in defensive efficiency in conference only in ACC games.
Yep.
It is it's an impressive turnaround. I mean, to see how they played in those losses you mentioned, Sherrell, and to see how they're playing now and have gotten it done. Level of competition, y'all talked about it in recruiting. We talk about it, and I'll talk about it in that regard, but we'll find out a lot. But I think Carolina is on a good path. It's this day and age, a couple bad games can really shape everybody's opinion. But I think Carolina's moving in the right direction. Sean and Rail, Tate Frazier said Virginia Tech was the best team in the conference, Sherrell, when we had him on. Is it time to blow him up on that, or do we just leave it alone? I know they won today.
We like Tate, so we leave it alone. We like Tate.
Tate, if you're listening, it has not been forgotten, and it is memorialized at InsideCarolina.com podcast. Sean and Rail and Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Appreciate it, guys.